You look at Rose McGowan with Shannen Doherty. Rose replaced Shannen on Charmed. And unfortunately, they never got the chance to act together on the show. But they end up being good friends in real life. So that's a beautiful thing. Um, Shannen just died from cancer at the age of 52. She was diagnosed in 2015 with cancer and went into remission. And then it came back. I know that quite well. My mom died from cancer when she was 58. Same thing. Like she had cancer. She had breast cancer. Um, she went into remission. She made the 5 year period where they basically said, if you make it 5 years, like, you'll be great. And then it came back and it was horrible. Um, in Shannon's case, uh, the one thing she's been doing lately before she passed away, she had a podcast. She was doing a lot of interviews. Her husband was suing her for he was suing her for divorce. It's like, that's crazy. But I guess they settled before she died. But it's just, I don't know, man. You really know people who really love you, man. But you're still trying to divorce somebody, man, when they have cancer. That's crazy. But yeah, I was never a big fan of 90210. Like, I knew the show, I liked the show. It's crazy that her and Luke Perry are both gone. Uh, uh, the one thing I did like about Shannon, she had a raspy voice, and that's that Demi Moore era of the late of the 80s and of the 90s. Well, if you're a cute brunette with a raspy voice, you got work. Like, the only person that can think of that's still from that era is still working is Mariska Hargitay. And I miss the husky voice actresses that came through that time period. It was nice. It's a sexy voice these chicks had. So Shannon, she was on 90210, I think around the fourth season. If I got this wrong, correct me. She got bounced with 90210 because she was the bad girl of the show. The show was produced by Aaron Spelling, 91210. And in fact, I was a bigger fan of Melrose, which was a spinoff of 91210. Didn't watch it the first year. Well, Heather Locklear popped up on Melrose. That's when I started watching that. So Spelling produced Melrose. He produced 90210. But then years later, Spelling produced Charmed. And it was with Shannen Doherty and Alyssa Milano. And Alyssa Milano was the draw because she was really nice looking. And it's like, oh, Alyssa Milano and Shannen Doherty's on the show together. Okay, and they're playing witches? That's nice, because I didn't know who Holly Marie Combs is, because I was like, well, who's that chick? And it's like, oh, she's cute too. So those first few seasons of Charmed, also with Julian McMahon, who played Cole, were really good. And I think Shannen actually dated Julian McMahon for a while. It was a really good show because Shannen was the big sister Prue. But by season 3, she got bounced again. And again, the press was all like, oh, bad girls, Shannen Doherty got bounced from another Aaron Spelling show. But then we zoom years later, and you find out that people love Shannen on that show. Her and Holly Marie Combs were really tight. And we found out later that it wasn't really Shannen, it was Alyssa Milano. Because the narrative back then in the 90s was Shannen Doherty was the bad girl, and Alyssa Milano, who came off of Who's the Boss, was the good girl, right? She was Samantha. She's a good girl. She's a cute good girl. And I like Alyssa. I do. But, as the years went along, if you really start looking at their total history, Alyssa, she dated a lot, which was fine. But she wasn't this squeaky clean, perfect chick. Like, she had some stuff. But the narrative was Shannen bad, Alyssa good. And as we zoom ahead, it was really more Alyssa than Shannen. But they kind of protected Alyssa back then and kind of let Shannen twist in the wind. That's why, unfortunately, I guess the best thing and the worst thing that happened to her was the cancer, because it made people take a second look at her, at Shannen Doherty and her life, and who she really is as a person. And people now have loving feelings for Shannen Doherty, where before they just stuck to the narrative as that, like, she was just a problematic person. Not to say that she wasn't before, but she matured. And I hoped that her and Alyssa would have buried the hatchet, but that never quite happened. But it's good it's good to see that she did have a relationship with Holly Marie Combs from Charmed, and also uh, Rose McGowan. And when Rose McGowan was on Charmed, what's okay? So Shannen Doherty got bounced. It's like, man, who's gonna? It's not gonna work. But then they said Rose McGowan's gonna be on there, and I was hoping that I was gonna get the the Rose McGowan from Scream or the Rose McGowan from Jawbreakers, who was a very sexy, very seductive. But I got a nicer Rose McGowan, like a like a like a fun, cool, like a fun sister Rose McGowan on Charmed. It's like it was fine. It's just I didn't. She played the character totally different than I. I thought she was going to be more of a seductress type, but she was kind of a nice half sister type, which was fine. But really, the show really once Julian McMahon left to go to Nip Tuck because he was for a minute he was trying to do both, but then he left that and went to Nip Tuck. That's when the show kind of to me jumped the shark because they brought a young guy in and it's like, I don't know, this dude's okay, but he's not cold. And Rose is good, but she's not what I thought she was be. So so rest in peace to Shannen Doherty. I hate cancer. I really do. Like my mom passed away in 1998, and you would think by now that we would advance to a point that if you're diagnosed with cancer, that they have like better ways of fixing you. And, I think the difference between now and then is like women weren't doing double mastectomies that back then, so women now have the option of having a double mastectomy and then having reconstructive surgery, which is great. Back then, if you had breast cancer, they would just take off the one breast, and that's from a psychological standpoint. I'm sure that was damaging to a lot of women. So at least from a surgical standpoint, they're a lot more proactive of trying to save a woman's life. And dudes too, because Richard Roundtree from Shaft, he had breast cancer. So yeah, dudes too. Like they don't talk about that enough. Like the same thing with heart attacks, where we hear about men die from heart attacks, but there's a lot of women who die from heart attacks. And the same thing with breast cancer. Most of the breast cancer victims are women, but there are men also who get breast cancer. So if you're a guy who got pecs of any kind, um, it make sure you kind of check your chest too, so you don't have any lumps. So do that. So the cool thing is that Shannen Doherty has these podcast interviews and these podcasts that she has out. So if you want to learn more about her time on Charmed or 90210, check those out. If you're a Shannen Doherty fan, what did you like? Which show did you like her the best? Did you like her on 90210 when she was with Dylan McKay? Uh, or did you enjoy her on Charmed, even though it's short lived? Or did you like her on Little House on the Prairie? Or maybe some TV movies she was doing? Let me know.